Hey everyone, back here with another video, and this is a little bit different than my normal videos because I actually have someone here with me, and I actually have one of my former clients here, Kyle, and he was grateful enough to talk to everyone about his experience working with me. We have been working together, or have been working together for pretty much the past year. And we've done a lot, worked on a lot of different things, and he's grateful enough to share all that stuff with everyone. Kyle, why don't you introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about you?
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. My name's Kyle, and I am 37 years old. I'm a dad of two young kids. One's about to turn 5, and the other one's 2.5. And um, currently stay at home and take care of the kids and the house. And I started working with Ryan about, just a year ago now. And I came into it from the majority of my life being primarily a runner and having gotten into strength training much more recently, but never really stuck with it in a long term committed way, and really needed some help to do that, to get set up, to learn more about it, to have someone help me program and understand what was best for me to be doing. And one of my big goals for getting a coach and working with Ryan was to build strength and size, because I've been a lean runner and had been running quite a bit leading up to that, but wanted to kind of balance that more with increased strength training, and but also keep the running as well. And that's one of the things that drew me to Ryan, was his background personally in doing both running and strength training, and his experience as a coach balancing both of those.
Yeah, so why don't you tell us a little bit about in the beginning, you said one of your primary goals here was really to start to develop a consistent strength training program and to add some muscle mass since you're coming from a lean kind of more endurance background. Why was that important to you? Like, why did you have that or develop that goal? Why'd you come up with that goal?
Yeah, I think there were probably a handful of different reasons. For the 6 months to a year before I started working with you, I I had been eating low carb and at times keto for a while, and I had trained for a marathon. It was a personal goal. Had ran in the past. I'd run a handful of marathons, but had taken quite a long break from long distance running, partly from because of injuries and partly because of life, but had gotten back into it. So I was the leanest I had ever been in a long time, and I was I had taken some time to get into health and fitness in terms of reading books and listening to podcasts and trying to educate myself on things. And a few of the takeaways that I had come up with from all of that was that keto and low carb wasn't going to be a long-term solution for me. Another one was that both sort of general health and longevity is better with more muscle mass. And I also just wanted to be stronger, to be able to do things, whatever that was, with the kids or my own life. General things I like to do, like hiking and sports and running, just more strength. I think was going to be helpful for running too. Injury prevention. There's a lot of reasons. Basically, there's just almost everything gets better when you have a more lean muscle mass and increased strength, especially with what I would be going for as a 37-year-old dad. I'm not going to any sort of extreme far end of that muscle mass and strength perspective, or never get big enough and strong enough to be a detriment to my other goals like running and all the other things I want in my life. So basically, as strong as and as big as I can get would all be a benefit to the other things I want to do in my life.
Hmm. Cool. And the other interesting thing, and I think we'll chat a little bit about diet more specifically, but I did want to mention because you were saying you're coming from a more low carb, ketogenic way of eating in the past, is adding more muscle mass allows or facilitates eating more carbohydrates anyways, because that's where your carbohydrates will get stored and primarily utilized in the local muscle mass. So the more muscle you have, the more carbs you can eat without negatively affecting your metabolic health or by any means. Yeah, we'll touch a little bit more on that, but I wanted to throw that little anecdote in there because I think it's important when we're talking about adding muscle and building strength. It's not only just like functional stuff or to make us look good when our shirt's off, but also it has some probably the biggest impact when it comes to something like blood sugar regulation for any individual. Well, cool. So why don't you explain to everyone how we went about, like in the beginning, adding in strength training, what that kind of looked like for you, and how that evolved over the course of the year that we were working together.
Yeah. And just briefly before I go into that,
Yeah.
for reference too, I was at my lightest, I think I was about 147, and I'm 6 feet tall. So when I was eating keto and training for the marathon, I think the leanest I got was 147. And now I'm about 167, maybe 165, potentially in that range. And yeah, and I think it's all for the better for sure. Give some context to what we were just talking about in terms of adding some mass. Yeah, so we started I started working with you right after I finished the marathon, which I had been doing a little bit of strength work, mostly as injury prevention type of thing, and it was mostly body weight work. But when we started working together, that you took a lot of information and time to figure out where to meet me where I was, and that meant both like physically where I was, but also what I had in terms of equipment and what I was capable of doing. And at the time, the best thing was for us to start with TRX workouts. I had set of TRX straps, and I wanted to work out at home because I have two kids and I'm taking care of them primarily. My wife works full time, and it was something I could do in my house and also physically do with not having much strength at that time or muscle mass and not a lot of background in it. So we did primarily TRX workouts, and you programmed a good, I think, 6 or 8 weeks of those. Also, because it was during the time of year when I was traveling a lot for the holidays, I could pack those up and take them with me. So that was a great start. We got all the way, I think, through the new year into January with that. And that was really great. Those were really helpful for me because I could make also the benefit of the TRX is partly because I could make them as hard or as easy as I needed to for where my strength was. So it was learning some of the basic movements, but also then sort of adjusting it as I needed to, rather than having an exact set weight on a barbell or a dumbbell. So that was really helpful. And then we started getting into, I got a set of barbell free weights and some dumbbells, and we started getting into more strength work for the next program that you set out. And that was really helpful. It was, harder for me because I was learning some new movements and working a lot on form, but also adding extra weight to things. But that was a really great stretch during the winter time, especially here in New Hampshire. Just a lot of short, dark days, so it was easy to get in the basement and work out. And yeah, and then it kept evolving throughout the rest of the year from there.
Yeah, I think sharing your experience about getting started with the TRX is an important one. And I think TRX, or that's the brand name, but a suspension trainer, You can find one on Amazon or online fairly cheap, and they are probably one of the more versatile pieces of equipment. In fact, I pretty much recommend that every one of my clients has one because it's cheap and it's super effective. And like I said, for people who like to be active in some way when they're traveling, like it fits in a bag. I can't tell you the number of times that I myself take my TRX when I'm on vacation or traveling or whatever, because you just throw it right in your carry-on or your backpack, whatever. And as long as there's a door wherever you're going, which most places it will be, or it could be a tree, or I've hung mine from like the underside of a deck at a house that I was renting. There's just infinite ways to, once you get it hung up, and then you're good to go. And it's super effective. Like you said, like it can be, you can alter the resistance very easily by manipulating the straps or the way you're positioning your body. And you can provide a super lot of resistance and make it the exercise super hard, or you can lessen the resistance. And so if you don't have a lot of strength in a specific exercise or movement pattern, or you're just getting started, it's approachable whether you're a seasoned strength trainer or someone who's just getting started. And like you said, for you, like you didn't have a lot of equipment at home, but you had this TRX, and so you didn't, necessarily going to the gym was not necessarily going to be conducive to your lifestyle because you're a stay-at-home father. And so it's a simple, effective tool. It's cheap, and that's where we started with. And you didn't need anything more than that because you're just getting started, right? You didn't need these fancy barbell movements or anything like that, or dumbbells or whatnot to begin with, because anything strength related was going to provide the stimulus for you to build muscle and get stronger at that point. Do my model when I work with people is like you said, I need to meet them where they're at. What are their constraints with their lifestyle, their equipment that they have, the time of day, the amount of time that they have to work out. And so what can we fit into that, those constraints to reach them or work towards their goals? And there's an infinite way to get stronger and to build muscle. There's infinite amount of exercises, right? They're all effective. Um, so that's the good news. We just need to find what's gonna match best with your preferences and constraints and stuff like that. TRX is where I was at, and the cool thing was like you went. I also think that people are like building out a home gym is super expensive and time consuming. And I know your experience with that was completely the opposite, right? I think you got almost all your equipment you got on Craigslist used from someone else, right? You got a barbell, a
Yeah.
rack, plates, dumbbells, kettlebells, everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
got the TRX strap from a gym that was going out of business. I got a squat rack and bench and barbell and free weights from someone off Craigslist all in one purchase. And I've been slowly adding dumbbells as I need them. And yeah, and I think I ordered some resistance bands off of Amazon too, or,
Hmm.
got them for Christmas at some point or something like that. So that was nice to be able to slowly build that up and not have some huge expense all at first. And yeah, that was helpful. You just worked with whatever I had and programmed based on that, and that changed throughout the year. And also, for context, it changed a little bit throughout the year, but generally the breakdown of the week was something like 3 strength workouts during the week, mostly full body each day, and then 1 or 2 dedicated running days a week, and then an extra day or 2, sort of a flex running day if it made sense based on energy and whatever else was going on in my life, and then a some kind of a sprint day, usually on the bike, like an indoor exercise bike sprint workout. And that was the general flow of each week, and it varied a little bit, but that each program had some variation of that, which worked really well for me because of where I was physically, but also with my schedule with the family, being able to get certain days I knew I could dedicate to getting a longer strength workout, and some other days I knew I couldn't. It just, yeah, that we shaped the week and which days I worked out based on that.
Hmm. Yeah, in general, I like to incorporate main pillars, I think, of exercise for all clients. And this varies what it looks like based on the client, their goals and their starting point, etc. But 2 to 3 days of strength training, around 2 days of some type of low level cardio type of stuff. And then somewhere we'll sprinkle in some high intensity work at some point. Some people, for some clients, I don't necessarily, they don't begin with any kind of high intensity work because they have a lot to gain from conditioning their aerobic system, the low intensity cardio stuff. So we'll focus purely on just doing easy cardio sessions in the beginning because they can make massive improvements just by building that aerobic base. But for people like yourself, where you have a strong endurance background, your aerobic base is more than sufficient. And so I'll add in some high intensity stuff. And then I generally like to do it. The reason why it's on the bike, because it's low impact, less risk of injury, that type of stuff. And so I generally like to pick a modality where we can kind of take the risk of injury down a little bit. And you happen to have a Peloton. So that made that piece easy for that type of stuff. But that general flow is what I apply to most clients, and then I customize it based on the goals and what they prefer and the equipment that they have, again, available to them, that type of stuff. Cool. You mentioned a little bit about that flow look, that pattern or of the week of training looked pretty much similar across the entire year, but there were variations in particularly like the strength training that we were doing. So like at the beginning, we started out with TRX, but then we transitioned into different types, messing with the volume of strength training, the sets, the reps, the number of exercises throughout the course of the year we worked together. Do you want to speak a little bit about that and maybe some insights that you had based on different types of adjusting the volume and intensity and that type of stuff?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think there were some stretches of time where you had programmed in low reps and higher weight. So there's a stretch where I really worked on front squat and deadlift and the big compound movements and the barbell dumbbell work, and it was really as heavy as I could go at the time, and 3 to 5 reps for a lot of those exercises. And then the next program after that, I can't remember the exact order of things over the whole year, would be more focused on higher reps, not necessarily trying to push the weight higher, but either moving the same weight or even a little bit lighter weight sometimes for higher reps. And what I liked about each program block was that it would build to a finish that we'd, as often as I could, do a strength test, 3 rep max type of thing. And then after that, sort of reset where the sets would bump down to get used to the new exercises. And for me, because a lot of it was new, figure out what weight I really needed to be at for each exercise. And then every week or 2 weeks, depending on the program block, the sets would increase from 2 to 3 to 4 and then finish with 5 sets of each exercise. So that was really, that worked really well for me. And I liked it because I was getting used to some new exercises and figuring out where some of the weights were, like what weight I really needed to get myself to, or if I jumped too high to get back down to for certain exercises. And that sort of build up helped me do that. And then also, yeah, just gave me some time off where I'd be pushing myself for a few weeks pretty hard and then have a stretch where it was a little bit easier, workouts were a little bit shorter. Just, it was a nice ebb and flow in that sense. And yeah, you would work with me a lot based on what was going on in my life, and that's one of the best things that was really helpful working with you, and why I wanted to work with you was because you're a dad, you've been through this, and even if you're not a dad, but you just have life is always busy and unpredictable for everybody in different ways. It just was really helpful. There were, I don't know how many weeks where the kids were sick and I couldn't get workouts in. I was sick and I couldn't get workouts in, or I could get one in, but it would have to be shorter, or I'd have to rearrange the week and just move some workouts to different days. Whatever it was, you were responsive and would help me quickly adjust things or plan ahead when I knew I was traveling or the kids would be home for some reason when I didn't expect them to be. Whatever it is, we worked through that and made it work. Both to keep to the schedule as much as possible, and also as just a helpful reminder that it's okay when it didn't when it didn't happen. That it wasn't nothing was getting derailed by missing a day, a couple days, or at even sometimes even more.
Yeah, yeah, definitely something I was gonna want to chat to you about as well. But just back to the point about the programming, we spent some time in the beginning. We did a block of TRX, and I think we moved into after that block, and this kind of will tie into maybe some of the diet discussion a little bit later on as well. But you were like, I really want to like put on like focus on like really adding a muscle, and so we threw you into a caloric surplus, and then we really started adding a whole bunch of volume into the mix. And I say a whole bunch, meaning more volume than you were doing before, right? I think that's what we're doing. I'm not like just like blindly throwing stuff at you, but adding and slowly increasing volume a lot. And then I think after we got through that block, you're like, okay, I spent a good amount of time eating a whole bunch of food and then trying to add as much muscle as I want. So I'd like to do a little bit of a cut here. And so then in that cut, we then phase the training a little bit lower on the volume, but more on the strength, because you were more focusing on just shedding off some of the body fat we potentially added from the bulk and the mass building phase. And then, yeah, so the transition between diet goals and body composition goals and reflected what we were doing in the training, etc. So that was, for me, I love that type of stuff, trying to match training with diet and complementing each other and things like that. That's, as a coach, that's like really fun for me to try and navigate those two and like make the two complement each other based on the goals that the client has. And so that was a fun experience for me. And yet you brought up being a dad and trying to navigate that with all the lifestyle practices that you ideally want to have in your life with kids. Anyone who has had young children knows that there is no for sure when it comes to your day and navigating the day-to-day challenges of waking up and someone's sick and not going to daycare today, or something came up on the weekend, or the kids brought home something, got you sick, or then like you said, you're certainly active socially, so you and your family like to go travel and trips and short weekend vacations and stuff like that, and navigating all that stuff. You want to add any more insight into that experience and how we work through those situations over the past year?
Yeah, I think that was the one of the more helpful parts about having a coach and having you as a coach. There were times where we could plan ahead because I knew we were traveling, and we you were I'm just given my experience level, I wasn't sure what was a good way to approach changes in a schedule. Like if I know I'm going to be gone for 4 days and didn't have access to weights, should I squish everything in the week? Should I skip something? Should I try to change up that week, some of the weekend workouts, and bring the TRX? And whatever is a different answer every time based on the context. You were helpful to give the guidance for that, because sometimes I'd have an idea of what to do. I'd suggest that, you'd say, yeah, that sounds great, let's do it. Sometimes I'd have no idea and you'd just tell me. And a lot of times it was, yeah, like it's okay to squish it and do some workouts more back to back, especially if I was feeling okay. Sometimes it'd be, if you can take something with you, great. Or if we can just move it so that your run is on the weekend, you don't need any equipment, that works. Or just been tired and pushing it hard, so just take an extra day off or something. And whatever it was, that was helpful to have the sort of custom feedback on what was best given that exact situation, rather than just some either me guessing. and either pushing it too hard, which in the past has led to some of my running injuries, or feeling like I'm worried I'm not doing enough and don't want to skip things. Whatever, it was just helpful to have your guidance and your reassurance on things. And yeah, also same thing, working with whatever equipment I have. So when there's one stretch of time where I was traveling for several weeks and I didn't know what I was going to have, but I was able to get access to a gym and change the workouts to fit having extra equipment for once and do some new things. So that was all really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I have a ton of clients that also have young children and trying to navigate those ins and outs of life when it's always changing. It can be tough, especially with workouts and things like diet and things like that is tough, right, for people to do on their own. And I think one of the biggest lessons that I try to instill in all my clients that are in that situation or in any situation where life can be unpredictable. It doesn't need to be unpredictable just because you have kids, but it's unpredictable because of work situations or family members that you might be taking care of or things like that. But the biggest thing I try to instill in them is it's okay that it's not perfect. It's okay that you didn't get to do the exact workout that you had planned to do or eat the exact way that you had planned to, right? If you're doing something, it's better than nothing. And if you're getting even remotely close to what you had planned on doing, like you're still probably making progress in the same direction, in the right direction towards your goal. And so I think lots of times, I think the biggest thing that I do as a coach is just give people reassurance that it's okay and that the wheels aren't falling off the wagon and that not all hope is lost in these situations because sometimes it seems like it is just, like you said, all hope is lost and I don't know what to do. And it's okay if you just the day goes to hell and you don't do anything because the day went to hell, like that's okay too, right? Those days are gonna happen as well. Cool.
Yeah, I think the somebody I started following before I met you that I once I started working with you found out was your coach is Dr. Mike T. Nelson. And one of the things he said a lot, he repeats a lot is violent consistency.
Mm.
And I liked that idea a lot because when you are consistent, it's not that you need to be perfect. It's that if you're consistent, then it's okay to miss something because you've been
Mm.
consistent otherwise besides that. So that it's not a matter of missing one workout. It's just about you've been there before, you missed this one, and you're going to go back there tomorrow. So it's whatever it is, it's just being consistent has really helped. And I think for where I was starting out as not having a ton of experience, but also being a dad with young kids and whatever everything else we had going on in life, I was struggling with the mental burden of planning things. And
Mm.
that was really getting in the way of me staying consistent. So when I didn't have a weekly plan, it was a lot harder for me to just go in and work out because I had to think about, okay, what am I going to do today? Or, what am I going to do tomorrow or the rest of the week? And that would be a barrier to me going and being consistent. So
Yep.
having it completely laid out for me was super helpful to just lower the barrier to all I needed to go was all I needed to do was go downstairs, check the schedule, see what I had to do, and just go do it.
Yep.
And even some
Yeah.
days it felt great, some days it didn't feel great. I didn't have as much energy, and that's okay too. It's just down there doing it and knowing I knew what to do every day made a huge difference for me being able to go do it and stay consistent.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. That's part of the reason why I have a coach too, is I just don't want to think about programming this stuff myself. Just have someone
Yeah,
do that for me. And
totally.
again, that's a luxury. Not everyone can do that. But yeah, it's definitely one of the benefits. It's like I don't have to put in the mental effort when I'm super tired to figure out what workout I'm gonna do.
And then,
Periodize something, properly or to just talk you off the ledge,
yeah,
that type of stuff. Yeah.
totally. And it'll be different. I had a running coach when I was coming back from injury for a little while, and that was extremely helpful. And I think you have coaches for different reasons at different times of your life based on what's going on in your life and what goals you have. And for me, because I was still learning, I am still learning a lot about strength training, but I didn't know much at all. It was a huge mental burden that was taken off my plate just to be able to figure out what to do, and then also change things if I needed to on the fly. So that was just hugely helpful for me over the course of the year.
Yeah, I just want to, last topic I think would be good to talk about is just transition to more, talk a little bit about dietary wise, what has shifted over the time that we've worked together. Because again, I briefly mentioned it a few times. You first started together, you're coming from like more of a keto background, low carb keto background, and then we really focused on being in a caloric surplus to try and add some muscle, and then we went into a little bit of a cut, and so there's been a couple of different diet phases over the past year. And I don't know if you want to speak a little bit about making those transitions and any challenges that were you faced along the way and how we went about working towards those dietary goals over the past year.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that's been an evolution over time, and I think will continue to be for me. I think that's one thing I've learned on my own over the course of the last, I don't know, 4 to 5 years, even just since I've really started getting more into it, which is things are very unique to each individual and they will change over time for each individual. But the long story short for me is that I, yeah, I was eating low carb and keto for a while. I had gotten into some of that low carb keto community or knowledge base about the benefits for doing it. And for me at the time, some of it was weight loss. I had been a little overweight leading up to and after the birth of our first child, and then going into COVID and a little bit through COVID. So I wanted to lose some weight, but then also I was just thinking about the benefits of long distance running and the low carb approach. And so I really dove into that and tried it. And this was before I worked with you. So yeah, that had some benefits to it. But then I kept learning about things and reflecting on how it was working or not working for me. And that's right about the time when we started working together. Was I was coming out of the marathon training and coming out of low carb eating and trying to get more into what I was learning and believing for me would be a better long-term solution. And that's generally a more, for me now, it's more of a bioenergetic or pro-metabolic approach to eating. And yeah, I think what's been really helpful working with you is that you, I think one of the ways I found you, or I know you have the work with the primal coaching community, and that's where a lot of the I came from with low carb was a lot of the Mark Sisson primal endurance and primal way of eating. But one thing that why I chose to work with you is that aren't you don't follow one specific way of approaching nutrition because it is so unique to each individual. You've had that experience yourself over the course of time, changing how you approach nutrition, but then especially with your clients, and I'll just only speak from my experiences, just working with whatever like for me, what I wanted to accomplish for my nutrition, giving your advice for what has worked for you and what you know from your coaching experience, but also letting me take the lead on what I wanted to try and incorporate because I was also trying to learn about it and implement some things myself. And I really appreciated that approach where some coaches are much more strict about a camp that they fall into and a path they try to uh, really get their clients to follow. Yours was giving your knowledge and advice and helping add some potential things to what I was doing with my nutrition, especially around like caloric surplus and timing certain things, but also working with me because of specific things I wanted to accomplish
Mhm.
and incorporate.
Yeah, you're a unique client in that you did have very strong, I don't want to say opinions, but there were certain ways you wanted to eat that you thought were better for you, and which I thought was great. Like a lot of people come to me and they feel very lost from a nutrition perspective because they hear one way of eating is good and this other way is eating is better and the original way of eating that we're doing is terrible for you. Like it's just back and forth all the time. They're jumping around with diets and they just feel like there's no clear answer as far as how they should be feeling their body. And I think you had spent a good amount of time playing with various diets and understanding various different nutritional strategies and tweaking things yourself. And you knew that like this pro metabolic way of eating was something that you were right now is something that you feel is best for you. And so I was like, sure, let's do it. For the most part, like I have no issue with that. It's just a different way of eating. It's like, so it's cool. And again, the principles of all healthy diets are all the same. They all like just focus on whole foods and try to eliminate all the garbage. Like every diet, whether it's keto, primal, paleo, pro metabolic, or vegan or vegetarianism, for the most part, is if you're successful at those diets, it's because you've eliminated vast majority of processed foods from your diet. And so, as long as that's the foundation, not to say that I don't that I never want to see a processed food in someone's diet food log, but like 90% of the time it's whole foods and nutrient dense whole foods. Yeah, it was good. And then from there, it was like, okay, I really want to focus on building muscle. Okay, let's just eat more of the foods that you want to eat, and we'll focus on that way. And then when we went to cut, we were like, okay, we'll cut down, eat less. For the most part, that worked out fine. Like you said, I'm not very dogmatic about the dietary approach because I know that there's an infinite number of approaches that have benefited people forever. So and I've seen it myself. I've changed my own dietary approaches and only improved my health and my performance, etc. And so I know that a lot of them work. Depends on the goal, depends on the person, depends on where they are in life, and frankly, their preferences. So if you prefer a certain way of eating, you prefer to eat lower carb and higher fat because you just like that way of eating, cool. We'll make it work. I'm not, if you force something on someone, whether it's from a dietary perspective or an exercise perspective or something like that, and they don't really actually enjoy it, then, and they're just doing it to appease you or because you're the coach or whatever, or you're the quote unquote expert, the chances of them sticking to that long term is slim to none. And then what they end up doing eventually is just reverting back to where they were before and losing any progress that they might have made. So it's just a wasted period of time, honestly. And so I'd rather take what they prefer to do and let's make it so it's not a complete shift in mindset or way of eating or exercising. It's something that actually fits into their lifestyle, something they enjoy, because that way they can stick to it for the rest of their lives. And that's really my ultimate goal, is to make lifelong changes, not short-term changes for the sake of losing 5 pounds or whatever, right? Just to put them back on, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And I think I'd say maybe two things that have come to mind about nutrition and working with a coach in general and working with you. I think one thing in my experience that's been helpful is to be just completely honest and factual about what it is that you are doing with your nutrition and eating on a daily basis. I prefer to track because that's really helpful for me. I know some people don't, and that's okay. There's no right or wrong answer. I think it's human nature, and maybe also some coaches or other people can give off, I don't know, the wrong vibes of judging what you're doing. And so it can be human nature to not want to be as 100% honest about what you might have done in a day in terms of what you've eaten, because you don't want to feel like you're off track or you're letting someone down or you are doing something wrong. But it is just what it is so much better to just say what you do, and then you can figure out how that's working or not working for you, rather than hiding something or not being, totally honest about what you ate or how much you ate or whatever it is. Because, there was zero judgment, there's zero feedback other than, okay, here's what you did. Let's figure out what that's doing for you. And then if we want to change it. And, I think that just goes a long way to encouraging just treating things as just what they are and facts, and how to make it better for people, like you were just saying, like adjusting
Mm.
things, adding healthy things in, and going from meeting people where they are, rather than any sort of an approach of you should be doing one thing versus another, or you shouldn't be doing what something that you may already be doing. Different things you incorporate, you do eat that are whatever it might be, processed foods, or too much of something or not enough of something else. There's none of that judgment. There's nothing other than just let's figure out what you're doing and what works best for you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that's a huge thing, and from my experience, something that is really helpful. And then the other part, the second thing I was going to say, is that I think you are really responsive to any changing goals that I did have throughout the year. And one thing looking back on it that I wish I had done differently, or I would do differently again, maybe is a better way to put it, is I think I would have stayed in a caloric surplus longer. I think I got a little gun shy about adding weight, especially leading into the summer. But I said I wanted to do a cut. I wanted to try and lose some body fat. You said, okay, that's great. That's what you want to do. This is how I would approach doing it. And then we just kept giving each other feedback. And one thing that happened was like, it didn't feel good for me to lower my calories. I started losing energy. I wasn't sleeping as well. And yeah, we ended up going back more to a maintenance level and adjusting from there. But I personally just wish I would have stayed in a surplus longer. If it just felt better, for myself, it was just like a personal hang up about not wanting to add too much weight. And if I were to do it again, I would probably stay in a surplus longer than I did.
Mm. Yeah, I think to your first point about not being judgmental about what's in your log, like I make it a point of like when I first start working with someone, it's like I just want to see. I don't actually tell them to change anything about their nutrition. Just say, please just show me in your log like what you're eating is. No judgment. I don't really care if you're having ice cream, a bowl of ice cream every night. Like just put it in your log. Like it's no big deal. Like the more accurate a picture you can give me, the better the results are going to be. And obviously, I also understand that the goal is to eat nice, whole, unprocessed meals for every single meal. But there's holidays and birthday parties and celebrations and nights out with the wife and weekends away and all that fun stuff where you're gonna have foods that are processed and you're gonna have the ice cream, you're gonna have the cake, you're gonna have the cookies. It's okay. I understand that stuff's there. Just show me. It helps explain maybe why other things might be trending the way they are. Like it might, if you had a drink one night, it might explain why your HRV looks like crap the next day. Whereas if you just, I don't want to put that in my log because then Ryan's gonna berate me about it. Then I'm thinking, why is his HRV like tanking in the trash? And I'm thinking about training and stuff like that. Whereas if I knew it was just a drink you had at dinner with your wife, okay, that's just a temporary thing. Next day should be fine, type of thing. I never don't judge. I don't really judge anything. And the more accurate a food logs for me, especially when I'm not someone that's like I'm doing a lot of this remotely, the more information, the better, right? I'm better able to help you than get to your goals, right? And like my food log looks like I had a couple drinks, and that's why my HRV looks terrible to my coach occasionally, right? And I had a big piece of cake because it was my kid's birthday. Like that's what my food log looks like sometimes, right? And that's life. And yeah, to your point about staying in a caloric surplus a little bit longer, it's 100% natural for everyone. There's not a single person on the planet that's gonna be like, let's just bulk. Maybe if you're like some people are like it's bulking season, they really go after it. But most people do have some kind of threshold in their mind where they're like, I don't really want to get any bigger than I am because it's new ground, it's unfamiliar, and so it can be a little bit scary and go back. And again, while the coach, I might in my mind I might have said to myself, I know he's fine. He doesn't need to, other than maybe vanity's sake. There's no reason he's not unhealthy because of the way he's eating or anything like that. Cut back on calories. Again, it's more about making you comfortable, right? You push
You
to a
also
new.
you didn't just say it in your mind. You told me the same thing. You said, I don't see any reason you need to stop what you're doing, but if you want to try and make a change and see what happens, I'll support you. And here's what I'd suggest. It wasn't just in your mind. Just sorry to interrupt you, but
Yeah,
yeah.
no. What I was going to say was like, yeah, you've gotten to a new level. right? It's something you hadn't done before. You experienced a new threshold in the amount of food you're eating. And so it's okay to come back down and reset and readjust and give yourself a little break, and then go back up at another time where you feel more comfortable, and or it's not summertime and like now, and maybe go a little bit higher and see what that feels like. So it's just all a process, right? It's just, unfortunately, these things take so much time, and it's it's I'd love to work with someone forever, but it just, and go through all these cycles indefinitely with them. But it's just, it takes time, you know, to go through the different cycles and then come back down and go back up and stuff like that. But now you have the knowledge and you have the skills and you have the all the lessons that I learned over the past year, that you can probably navigate a lot of that stuff yourself and be a little bit more comfortable with it doing it yourself, which is the ultimate goal, anyways.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything else you wanted to share with anyone?
No, I think, yeah, I don't know. It's for anybody who's not sure about working for a coach, it's just been super helpful. And I'd say some of the biggest benefits are it took away the mental and time burden of learning what you need to know to be able to plan, and then the actual planning itself. All of that just takes a lot of time and effort and energy. And I think that's by itself worth the cost of having a coach, in my opinion. And then the flexibility of being able to change things on the fly, because yeah, everything will go differently than you expect, just because that's what life is like, both in terms of progress along the plan, but also, needing to change the plan for whatever unforeseen reasons, and changing goals. Like, I at one point had started the year working with you with some goals, and then they changed a couple of times throughout the year for a variety of reasons. And what I was doing tweaked a little bit, not fundamentally changed anything, but tweaked to be able to accommodate some of those goals. And for example, I was going to do a big long run, but then decided not to. So we really focused on strength and gaining mass. And then now at the tail end of us working together, I did make some plans to do a long, ultra length kind of trail run that, when we, once that was a part of the long-term plan for next year, we started doing some more single leg stability stuff that would really help with that as well, in addition to the other stuff we had been working on. And it just, the foundation, plan building and all that by this itself is enough, and then the flexibility on top of that is extremely valuable. And for anyone who's not totally confident in their knowledge and time to be able to do that themselves, it's worth having that done for you, and the help to learn about how to do it along the way as well.
Absolutely. It's been a great pleasure as a coach to work with you. So I really appreciate the opportunity and taking the time to share your experience with everyone here, and all the kind words that you said. But if anyone has any questions, maybe they want to reach out to you or directly and ask you about something you said, do you want to tell them how to get in contact with you, or rather remain anonymous?
Sure. Yeah. Same to you. I've really enjoyed working together with you. And yeah, I think it's been really, I don't know if everybody has this idea in mind, but for me, it's been really helpful to have the work done for me, but then also learn how to do some of the work myself along the way. Because yeah, I do think there's value in having a coach indefinitely. If you're fortunate enough to be able to afford it, I think it's really valuable. But I also want to start doing some of this on my own and taking a little bit more control of it as I learn more and get more confident in it. So that's just been, yeah, it's been a really great year in all those respects. Yeah. And if anyone has any questions, they can certainly reach out to me. I'd say the best way to do that is my email, which is just KYLEKWIATKOWSKI, the number one, at duck.com. So first name, last name, number one, at duck.com. Yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions. But yeah, it's been a pleasure working together, and I know we'll stay in touch moving forward too.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Kyle. I'll chat to you
Thanks a lot,
soon.
Ryan.